Hi friends. So I was recently asked if I'd ever created, I'm just activating my paints here with a little water. Make sure you always do that for the newbies out there. I was asked if I'd ever done any type of drawing for creating roses that had like the spaces drawn on. I'll show you in just a second here where you could follow with your brush, your paintbrush. So I thought, oh, that might be a good idea. So let's just try and do that. So in the middle of your rose, you're just gonna have very thin strokes like this, okay? As you get wider, those brush strokes are gonna get bigger. So I might start doing something like this. And they're kind of in these teardroppy type shapes, or the way I do them anyway. And they do have a little white space in between. The other thing is you want to make sure you're varying them. So it's like a brick pattern. It's not just one stacked behind the other. Then as you get wider, you might have a little bit more of that type of shape. Something like that. It's hard to draw because I can't totally see what I'm doing, and I kind of go more into like that type of shape. So I'm going to try and put something like this together for you and maybe make a little $2.50 tutorial kit that you could follow if you think that's helpful, because these kind of take me a while just because I'm a little tech challenged. So if it's not something that's helpful, you know, I totally get it, no big deal, but I don't want to put a lot of time into it. Oops, I just threw water everywhere. And then maybe I could do a little swatch sheet where you practice your values, which I think is really important. So here would be your dark value. Here is your medium value, because I think it's important to incorporate all of these into your painting for interest. So you might, and I'm going to use a, this is the Oval Wash, 1/2 inch Princeton Oval Wash Neptune, or, I mean, you could use any brush really. You could use your round, but I think this brush has just kind of been my go-to lately. So let me pick up a little bit of paint here. Let's see. Let me grab my palette. Put it in here. All right, you know what, you guys? I am cleaning my palette today because it's just a little out of control. Okay, so the middle of your rose, you want to make your darkest value. So let's just put our darkest value right here, which is going to be maybe 80% pigment, 20% water. Okay, so there's your dark. You want to do that. I'm going to rinse my brush off a bit and go in, and now this is my light. Look at how great this brush works, by the way. So now we've got a mid value. Then I'm going to rinse my brush off one more time, scrape it off a bit, and now here's our light value. Okay, so we've got these 3 different values. We're going to start out with the center, is that dark value. I'm loading my brush, pick up a little more paint, and tapping it off. Now this is a pretty large brush, so I'm making sure I tap a lot of that off. And you could follow my lines here and just use the tip of that brush, make those lines, something like that. Okay, and then as you branch out, I might add just a tad more water. There we go. and start using more pressure on my brush. So let's go this way, more pressure. It's so hard to do this sometimes slow, you guys. I feel like I kind of screw up. And actually, I'm adding in just a few in the center there. As I go out, I'm applying more pressure. And before I get too far on that, what I want to do is just go in with a little bit of a damp brush. Now see, this kind of dried too much because I waited, I was talking, which happens a lot. But I want to go in there and just, I want some white areas, but I also want some washiness. So I'm going to pick up some more paint here, making these petals as I've drawn them here, point, press, pick up. Again, it's kind of hard for me. It's so interesting to do this sometimes because I'm scraping off. So I'm picking up paint and then I'm tap, 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 scraping off a little. Because I do it very intuitively and quick when I paint. Point, press, up. Point, press, lift up. When I'm doing this slow, now all of a sudden I'm like hesitating. I'm doing all these crazy things. Point, press. Kind of like a C there. Now before that all dries, I want to go in there with just a damp brush and kind of fill in some of those spaces, and maybe even going along the outer edges, softening some of that, pushing down, widening my brush out, but following those drawn lines I get. Something like that. Now, what I want to do before that dries is just go in. I'm just going to go in with some cad yellow, you guys. So I'm picking up some cad yellow and scraping off, and just, now this is kind of dried, so it's not, it's more of a glaze than it is wet in wet, which is kind of how I like to work. Something like that. I'll go in with even a darker value and just kind of touch in with the tip of this brush. But I'm following the general pattern that I laid out here and drew. So let me know if drawing this for you might be helpful, because I'm happy to do that, but I don't want to go to the work of doing it if, you know, it's kind of like, I don't think I need that. And in the center there, we want to get pretty dark. So using just the tip and something like that. Tip, oops, sorry. Just almost took out my camera there. Adding in some of those darks. Now I want to go in before that dries too much and just add in a little bit of green. So this is with the oval wash, which I've been playing a lot with now. Kind of forgot about it. So I might even go point and then look at that nice big swoop I can get there. Love it. Swoop, swoop. Maybe some little doodads there. I really like to do that when my paint is wetter. Point, press. There we go. So it would have maybe blended in there. Let's put another one here, point, press. Those rose leaves can be a little bit jaggedy on the edge. So you could always do something like that. Let me get a little bit more paint here. I think I'm going to add in some of that tree green. I really like that. So see how that's spread? I love that look. And maybe add in some of that there. Just some pretty colors. So let me know if something like this will be helpful. I'm, more than happy to help you out with that. And maybe create a kit that has these lines drawn out, keeping in mind you have to kind of work fast. Make sure you're doing, I'll even put this at the bottom, and I'm going to say this is 80 pigment, 20 water. This is more like a 50-50, and this is a 20-80. So 20 pigment, 80 water. So that's just how you're creating it in your palette. It's not about, that isn't talking about how much liquid water is in your brush. And what I mean by that is sometimes when I say 20% pigment, 80% water, people think they have to pick up the brush with 80% water. It doesn't mean that. That's just the mixture to get that color you want. So if I went here and put 80% water, there we go, and maybe 20% pigment, so that's pretty watery. I'm not going directly from here with a fully loaded brush onto my painting because that would be really hard to control. I'm just, that 80-20 is just how I created the color, the value. Now look at all that comes off. I'm getting rid of a lot of that. So my brush is just, has paint in it, but it's not crazy. I might even add in some, I know my roses, they have little bits of red in the leaves, which I think is really pretty. So that dried a little, so I couldn't do that as well. But I think when you put the color of your flower in your petals, I think it's really, really fun. All right, guys. Well, you let me know if this is something that might help, and I am happy to create that for you. I think it could maybe be helpful. I think, if it helps you, like I said, I'm more than happy to do that for you. So thank you, everyone. And just let me know in the description down below. All right. Happy painting.